Actually, my sermon is actually just about what we saw. And I'm not kidding. How do you take something that is hard and flip it into something that is profoundly beautiful? You know, I know, we all know that we're living in hard times. And Mikey and David were leading us through a Rosh Hashanah in a tempestuous and tumultuous and not tranquil time. And while we were here in this halcyon, enchanted space and place and time, we weren't thinking tempest, we weren't thinking tumult, we weren't thinking edge, we weren't thinking anxiety, we were thinking that life is beautiful. Now, in shul, we can flip hard into beautiful. And if you happen to be musical prodigies, you can flip hard into beautiful. But how do we, who don't actually live here, live out there, how do we flip hard into beautiful? And how do we flip hard into beautiful in our daily lives? So today, since you just saw an example of what this looks like as high art and high drama and high spirituality, I want to offer you 3 different concentric circles of people who encountered hard, very hard, and flipped it into beautiful, very beautiful. And each of these stories, I think, can connect in every way with everyone here. The first story is a concentric circle, smallest concentric circle, is one man's spiritual journey, one person's journey of faith. The second concentric circle, the second story, takes place within a family, a father and a son who just don't connect. And then the third story is somebody who experiences a lot of challenge, and they respond by lavishing love and grace in the most unexpected time and place. So the first story, the first concentric circle, a person's spiritual journey. Many of us here, how many of you have heard of or ever encountered the rabbinic work known as Pirkei Avot, Ethics of Our Ancestors, Wisdom of Fathers? It's one of Rabbinic Judaism's most accessible, most famous works on how to build a beautiful life. And all of you know, if you're readers, that the end of a book is very important, because the end is the exclamation mark. The end is what the author wants to leave the reader with. The end is what the reader takes away. The end really matters. And the end of Pirkei Avot is striking both for what it says, it so speaks to today, and for who says it. Who says it is somebody we never heard of before. And who says it is somebody we never hear from again. Who says it is somebody who has one moment in the sun, and it's just to be the closer for Pirkei Avot. Plus, he has an unusual name. His name is Ben Heihei. And Ben Heihei teaches, Lafum Sa'ara Agara. According to the struggle is the reward, or in other words, do hard things, and good things will follow. So who is Ben Heihei? So I didn't know. I needed to do some sophisticated research. So I asked ChatGPT, hey, who is Ben Heihei? And Ben Heihei was a Jew by choice. He lived in the land of Israel in the first century of the Common Era, before Rome destroyed the temple in the year 70. And he lived when it was against the law to practice as a Jew, and it was against the law to convert to Judaism. And Ben Heihei was a convert to Judaism when it could have cost him his very life. Ben Heihei is a weird name because it's not his name. Ben Heihei is a pseudonym. Ben means the son of, and Heihei is a shout out to Abraham and Sarah. Abraham used to be Avram, and then he became Avraham. Sarah used to be Sarai. She got a hey, she became Sarah. Ben Heihei is the son of Abraham and Sarah, meaning he's a Jew by choice. To this day, all those who join the Jewish people are Ben or Bat, Abraham and Sarah. In other words, he does a very hard thing. He converts to Judaism when it's against the law to convert to Judaism. And he converts to Judaism when, if it was found out, he could lose his life for converting to Judaism. And he's glad he did. And it filled his life with meaning and purpose and joy and consequence. And the last teaching of Pirkei Avot, how do you build a beautiful life, is a twofer. It's his biography. A man became a Jew by choice when it was not easy, and his teaching, do hard things, and beautiful things will follow. So here's my first question for you, because we want to duplicate this energy for the other days of the year, and we want to duplicate this energy when we're outside of the magic of Mikey and David. So when you are on a journey, whatever your learning journey is, whatever your spiritual trajectory is, you pick the noun. If you like journey, if you like trajectory, if you like spiritual, but all of us have got to learn and grow. Why else are we here if not to learn and grow? Here's the question. Lafum tsara agara. Do hard things and good things will follow. What's something hard? What's something hard? Thank you. And then raising them. The job never ends. What is something hard that you're going to do from which good things will follow? The second concentric circle concerns a father and a son who are so close and yet so far away. Jay and Daniel Mendelsohn. So Jay Mendelssohn's the father, and he's a scientist, and he's a mathematician, and his favorite word is rigor. Rigor. He believes in things you can count. He believes in things you can quantify. He does not trust emotion. He does not trust affection. He's married, and he has 5 kids, and he never says, I love you. And he doesn't trust literature because he cannot count and quantify literature. A man of math and science. Rigor, 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 rigor. His son Daniel, just the opposite, never liked math, never liked science. Guess what he loved? Literature. He became a PhD in classics and teaches to this day classics at Bard College. So his father's 81, and the son Daniel is 51, and they never, ever clicked. Do you have somebody in your life that you never, ever clicked with? They're in your family, but you never, ever clicked. You're related to them, but you never, ever clicked with them. You're related to them, but they don't get you. You're related to them, but you don't get them. You're related to them, but you're disconnected from them. That's this father, this son, 81, 51. And Daniel writes about this story in a book called An Odyssey, because the father and son decide to do something about it. The father says, hey, Daniel, aren't you teaching the Odyssey at Bard College this year to your college freshman class? And Daniel says, yes, Dad, I am. And the father says, hey, what would you think if I were to take this class? I will be quiet as a church mouse. I won't raise my hand. I'll just listen. I'll just spectate. I want to see you teach, my dear son. Now, this is going to be very hard because Jay lived in Long Island. Daniel taught at Bard College. It's 2 to 3 hours drive, and it's 5 hours on public transportation. And the father's 81, and it's January, February, March, April, May, and it's in winter weather, the Northeast Corridor. And it was hard, and the father's 81, but he never misses. Goes to every class. And it's hard for the son, Daniel, as he writes about in the book, because the father says, I'm not going to say a word. He did no such thing. The entire time his hand is up. He's always objecting. He's always interjecting. He's always undermining. The typical class is the son, Daniel, will say, this chapter shows how Odysseus is a hero. The father's hand goes up. He's not a hero. He's not a hero. He's not a hero. A whole semester of that. When they're done for their coda, they go on a cruise to retrace Odysseus' steps. So all the chapters they read and the sites they read about, they now go in person. And something happens on that. First of all, the father, for the first time in his life, he's 81, he confesses his vulnerabilities. He says to his son, Daniel, I've messed up in some significant ways. And he shares his personal regrets. And he shares his professional regrets. And he had never, ever done that in his entire life. His son had never heard that, never seen that. And it humanized him and softened their relationship. And then, during the cruise, at the end of the day, all the cruise people would go to the bar of the hotel, and they'd order a drink. And the father turned out to be a raconteur, and he was just so witty and so funny and so wise. He was by far the oldest person on the cruise. And his son is gobsmacked. He can't recognize this as his father. This father who's so witty and so funny, and not the father that raised him, the rigor mathematician. For the first time at 81 and 51, after all these months of learning and then these weeks of travel, the father and son are finally clicking, and they love each other, and they get each other for the first time. And then just a month or two after the cruise, the father dies. And when the father dies, he can die in peace, and the son can rest in peace, knowing they had done the hard work to heal their divide. Do hard things, beautiful things will follow. So let me ask you a question. I got a Rosh Hashanah question for you. Think about your loved ones. Think about your family. Do you have any close relations where, if you're being honest with yourself, it's just okay? How are you doing with your brother and sister? Just okay. How are you doing with your son and daughter? Well, we're kind of just okay. How are you with your parents? Kind of just okay. Hey, how are your adult grandchildren? Just okay. So here's the thing, and we all know this. I'm just telling you what you know. Number one, just okay is not okay. And number two, one of the reasons Unatana Tokef is so incredibly powerful is that it's true, and we know it. The only thing that we all have in common is that none of us has forever. And the only thing that we all have in common is that none of us knows how much time we have. Jay and Daniel Mendelsohn made it right. Just months, right under the finish line. So here's some spiritual homework. Do the hard work of healing the divide within our own family. Beautiful things will follow. Here's the third concentric circle. Comes from our beloved Eretz Yisrael. The founding editor of the Times of Israel is a guy named David Horowitz. And it's a busy place, and it's a busy time, and he's a busy man. And he, like so many Israeli drivers, was driving too fast. So he drives too fast on the streets of Jerusalem. Flagged, speeding ticket. Next day, he drives too fast on the streets of Jerusalem. Speeding ticket. At which point, the Israeli police give him David Horowitz a choice. You could either lose your license, surrender your license, or if you want to keep driving, you have to go to a class for remedial drivers, a remedial education class. And by the way, it's 8 hours. It's 2 4-hour sessions. So David Horowitz has no free time. The only slot that is not already fully occupied is his Friday morning. For Israelis, Fridays are like our Sundays. So he takes the time that he would have gone to the gym, would have seen his kids and grandkids, would have had coffee with his wife, would have been able to breathe, and instead, under duress, he goes to remedial driver's ed. And he doesn't want to be there. He's there under duress, because that's the only way he can keep his license. And he gets there, and there's 35 other students who are there under duress. They don't want to be there. They hate being there. They're very the fact that they're there at all. Can you imagine trying to be a teacher in a class where nobody wants to be there? In comes the teacher. His name is Uri Tzichi. And as David Horowitz describes him in A Times of Israel Peace, he's in his 70s. He has obvious health issues. He's very frail, very fragile, visibly not so healthy. And all 35 people don't want to be there. And then Uri Tzichi starts doing his teaching, and the temperature and the tone change dramatically. He begins by saying, "Why am I, a sick man with all kinds of medical contraptions that he walks around with, why am I teaching you who don't want to be here? You don't want to be in this class, and I know this. And I'm not a well man, and you can see this. So why am I here?" And then he tells the story that a few years earlier, he faced a tsunami of medical challenges. He was diagnosed with Parkinson's. He was diagnosed with diabetes. And then Uri Tzichi was diagnosed with malignant cancer. And the doctors told him, "You have just weeks to live." And Uri Tzichi prayed to God. And he said to God, "Listen, if you'll give me a new lease on life, whatever time I have left, I will use to try to save lives. And since so many Israelis die on the roads, I will spend the rest of my time trying to teach Israelis how to drive more respectfully." So in the class, he began by talking about the technicalities of Israeli driving law. But then soon he talked about, what does God want of you to make of your life a blessing? How do you have to see other people so that you can see them as a blessing? Can you change your dominant emotion from rushed and angry and impetuous, and your fingers on the horn, and you're honking, and you're behind, and you're looking at your screen, and can you just do Zen and make of your life a blessing and be a blessing to other people? Well, he also didn't get paid a penny, or as they say in Israel, a shekel. He did this all as a labor of love. At the end of the class, these 35 students who did not want to be there felt that they had encountered one of the legendary Lamed Vavniks, the 36 righteous people whose quiet decency sustains the world. So, here's your third question for the new year. How can you flip hard into beautiful in some unexpected time, place, and way? What's your version of grace in an Israeli remedial education class? Which leads us to Rosh Hashanah today. Look, I'm not trying to glorify hard. We would all prefer easy. We would all love an easy button for life. Unfortunately, most of the things that we really care the most about are not easy. They are usually hard. Marriage, monogamous, faithful marriage through the years is just a great blessing, but it isn't easy. Raising children is a great blessing, but it isn't easy. America is the greatest country in the world, but it isn't easy. Israel is the eternal homeland of the Jewish people, and we love it always and forever, but it isn't easy. Work that matters isn't easy. Keeping a community together and connected during contentious times isn't easy. Waking up in the morning with a positive attitude despite it all isn't easy. The easy button is for buying stuff off the shelf. For the things we care about, hard just is. And so it becomes very important to flip hard into beautiful. So here's our homework. In this new year, 5786, what hard thing that you do not want? What hard thing that you do not deserve? What hard thing that just is, will you flip into beautiful? Ben Hey did it. Jay and Daniel Mendelsohn did it. Uri Tzichi did it. And life is calling upon us to do it too. Because this service took hard and flipped it into beautiful. And now, Mikey and David have tagged us to do the same in the real world where we live. Shana Tova. We rise.